Hello students, this is your English lesson. In this lesson, we are going to study unit number 5 with the title Great Expectations from Oxford Reading Circle Book 8. So we start our lesson. This is page number 42 from your book. My father's family name being Pirp and my Christian name Philip, my infant tongue could make of both names nothing longer or more explicit than Pip. So I called myself Pip and came to be called Pip. I give Pirp as my father's family name on the authority of his tombstone and my sister, Mrs. Joe Gagry, who married the blacksmith. As I never saw my father or my mother and never saw my likeness of either of them, for their days were long before the days of photographs, my first fancies regarding what they were like were unreasonably derived from their tombstones. The shape of the letters on my father's gave me an odd idea that he was a square, stout, dark man with curly black hair. From the character and tone of the inscription, also Georgiana, wife of the above, I drew a childish conclusion that my mother was freckled and sickly. To 5 little stone lozenge or lozenge, a small medicinal tablet originally in the shape of diamond, each about a foot and a half long, which were arranged in a neat row beside their grave, and were sacred to the memory of 5 little brothers of mine who gave up trying to get a living exceedingly early. I am indebted for a belief I religiously entertained that they had all been born on their backs with their hands in their trousers pockets and had never taken them out in this state of existence. Ours was the marsh country down by the river, within 20 miles of the sea. My first, most vivid and broad impression of the identity of things seems to me to have been gained on a memorable raw afternoon towards evening. At such time, I found out for certain that this bleak place, overgrown with nettles, was the churchyard, and the Philip Pirrip late of this parish and also Georgiana, wife of the above, were dead and buried, and that Alexander, Bartholomew, Abraham, Tobias, and Roger, infant children of the aforesaid, were also dead and buried, and that the dark flat wilderness beyond the churchyard, intersected with dikes and mounds and gates, with scattered cattle feeding on it, was the marshes, and that the low leaden line beyond was the river, and that the distant savage lair from which the wind was rushing was the sea, and that the small bundle of shivers growing afraid of it all the beginning to cry was Pip. Here aforesaid, denoting a thing a person previously mentioned, intersected here divide something by passing or lying across it. Dike is a long wall or embankment built to prevent flooding from the sea. Savage, a rude or unmannerly person. Lair, a place where a wild animal, especially a furious or dangerous one, lives. Flint, a hard grey rock consisting of nearly pure silica. Hold your nose, cried a terrible voice as a man started up from among the graves at the side of the church porch. Keep still, you little devil, or I'll cut your throat. A fearful man, all in chorus grey, with a great iron on his leg, a man with no hat, and with broken shoes, and with an old rag tied round his head, a man who had been soaked in water, and smothered in mud, and lamed by stones, and cut by flints. Flints or flint, a hard grey rock consisting of nearly pure silica, and stung by nettles. Nettle, a herbaceous herbaceous plant which has jagged leaves covered with stinging hairs, and torn by briars who limped and shivered and glared and growled, and whose teeth chattered in his head as he seized me by the chin. Oh, don't cut my throat, sir, I pleaded in terror. Pray don't do it, sir. Tell us your name, said the man. Quick, Pip, sir. Once more, said the man, staring at me. Give it mouth. Pip, Pip, sir. Show us where you live, said the man. Pint out the place. I pointed to where our village lay, on the flat inshore, among the elder trees and pollards, a mile or more from the church. The man, after looking at me for a moment, turned me upside down and emptied my pockets. There was nothing in them but a piece of bread. When the church came to itself, for he was so sudden and strong that he made it go head over heels before me, and I saw the steeple under my feet. Steeple, a church tower. When the church came to itself, I say, I was seated on a high tombstone, trembling while he ate the bread ravenously. Ravenously means with great hunger. You young dog, said the man, licking his lips. What fat cheeks you have got! I believe they were fat, though I was at that time undersized for my years and not strong. Darn me! Darn? A way to show disappointment or dismay. Darn me, if I couldn't eat. Said the man with a threatening shake of his head, and if I hadn't half a mind to it. I earnestly expressed my hope that he wouldn't, and held tighter to the tombstone on which he had put me, partly myself to keep myself upon it, partly to keep myself from crying. Now, look here, said the man. Where's your mother? There, sir, said I. He started, made a short run, and stopped and looked over his shoulder. There, sir, I timidly explained. Also, Georgiana. That's my mother. Oh, said he, coming back. And is that your father? A longer? Your mother? Yes, sir, said I. Him too, late of this parish. Parish district having its own priest. Ha! He muttered then, considering. Who would you live with? Supposing you are kindly let to live, which I hadn't made up my mind about. My sister, sir, Mrs. Joe Gaggery, wife of Joe Gaggery, the blacksmith, sir. Blacksmith? Ah, said he, and looked down at his leg. After darkly looking at his leg and me several times, he came closer to my tombstone, took me by both arms, and tilted me as back as far as he could hold me, so that his eyes looked most powerfully down into mine, and mine looked most helplessly up into his. Now look here, he said, the question being whether you are to be let to live. You know what a file is? Yes, sir. And you know what victuals is? Victual refers to food, more especially a stock or supply of food. Yes, sir. After each question, he tilted me over a little more, so as to give me a greater sense of helplessness and danger. You get me a file. He tilted me again. And you get me victuals. He tilted me again. You bring both to me. He tilted me again. Or I will have your heart and liver out. He tilted me again. I was dreadfully frightened and so dizzy, that I clung to him with both hands and said, "If you would kindly please to let me keep upright, sir, perhaps I shouldn't be sick, and perhaps I could attend more." He gave me a most tremendous dip and roll, so that the church jumped over its own weathercock. Then he held me by the arms in an upright position on the top of the stone, and went on in these fearful terms. "You bring me tomorrow morning early that file and them victuals. You bring the load to me at that old battery over yonder the far distance. You do it, and you never dare to say a word or dare to make a sign concerning your having seen such a person as me, or any person some hour, and you shall be let to live. You fail, or you go from my words in any particular in detail, no matter how small it is, and your heart and your liver shall be tore out, roasted, and ate. Now I ain't alone, as you may think I am. There is a young man hid with me, in comparison with which young man I am an angel. That young man hears the words I speak. That young man has a secret way peculiar to himself of getting at a boy, and at his heart and at his liver. It is in vain for a boy to attempt to hide himself from that young man. A boy may lock his door, may be warm in bed, may tuck himself up, may draw the clothes over his head, may think himself comfortable and safe, but that young man will softly creep his way to him and tear him open. I am keeping that young man from harming of you at the present moment with great difficulty. I find it very hard to hold that young man off of your inside. Now, what do you say? I said that I would get him the file, and I would get him what broken bits of food I could, and I would come to him at the battery early in the morning. "Say, Lord, strike you dead if you don't," said the man. I said so, and he took me down. Now he pursued, "You remember what you have undertook, and you remember that young man, and you get home. Good night, sir," I flattered. "Much of that," said the glancing about him over the cold, wet flat. "I wish I was a frog, or a eel." Eel is a snake-like fish. At the same time he hugged his shuddering body in both his arms, clasping himself as if to hold himself together, and limped towards the low church wall. As I saw him go picking his way among the nettles and among the brambles, bramble, a wild bush with thorns that bound the green mounds, he looked in my young eyes as if he were escaping from danger, eluding the hands of the dead people, stretching up cautiously out of their graves to get a twist upon his ankle and pull him in. When he came to the low church wall, he got over it like a man whose legs were numbed, deprived of physical sensation, numbed and stiff, and then turned round to look for me. When I saw him turning, I set my face towards home and made the best use of my legs. But presently I looked over my shoulder and saw him going on again towards the river, still hugging himself in both arms and picking his way with his sore feet among the great stones dropped into the marshes here and there for stepping places where the rains were heavy or the tide was in. The marshes were just a long black horizontal line then, as I stopped to look after him, and the river was just another horizontal line, not nearly so broad not yet so black, and the sky was just a row of long, angry red lines and dense black lines intermixed. On the edge of the river, I could faintly make out the only two black things in all the prospect that seemed to be standing upright. One of these was the beacon by which the sailors steered like an unhooped cask upon a pole, an ugly thing when you were near it, the other a gibbet with some chains hanging to it which had once held a pirate. The marshes were just a long black horizontal line. Then I stopped to look after him, and the river was just another horizontal line, not nearly so broad, not yet so black, and the sky was just a row of long angry red lines and dense black lines intermixed. On the edge of the river, I could faintly make out the only two black things in all the prospect that seemed to be standing upright. One of these was the beacon by which the sailors steered like an unhooped cask upon a pole, an ugly thing when you were near it, the other a gibbet, a wooden structure from which criminals were hanged, with some chains hanging to it which had once held a pirate. The man was limping on towards this latter as if he were the pirate come to life and come down and going back to hook himself up again. It gave me a terrible turn when I thought so, and as I saw the cattle lifting their heads to gaze after him, I wondered whether they thought so too. I looked all round for the horrible young man and could see no signs of him, but now I was frightened again and ran home without stopping. Now come to the exercises. A questions. 1. What are Pip's first impressions of his parents and where has he derived these from? Answer is Pip thinks his father was a square, stout, dark man with curly black hair and that his mother is freckled and sickly. He has derived his ideas about his parents from their tombstones. 2. What kind of countryside surrounds the graveyard? Pick out all the descriptive words and phrases used to describe the countryside. Answer is it is marshy, bleak, overgrown with nettles, dark, flat, wilderness, entrusted with dikes, intersected with dikes and mounds and gates, and scattered cattle feeding on it. The river is like a low leaden line, and the sea like a savage lair. 3. What overall impression does the reader get from the author's description of the countryside? How does this contribute to the general atmosphere created? The answer is it is depressing and scary. 4. What does Pip meet in the graveyard and what is he doing there? Who does Pip meet in the graveyard and what is he doing there? Answer is he met with a convict who has escaped and is hiding there. 5. Why is the convict entrusted to her that Pip's brother-in-law is a blacksmith? Answer is the blacksmith can cut open the iron chain that he is wearing on his leg. 6. Do you think the convict was telling the truth about having a companion? Why or why not? Answer is yes, to scare him so that he would do what he had asked him to do. 7. Which words and phrases in the text tell us that the convict is a wretched man? Answer is a fearful man in chorus grey seized me by the chin tells us that the convict is a wretched man. 8. Do you think Pip feels frightened of the convict or sympathy for him? Give evidence for your answer. Answer is he feels both frightened, trembling, helplessly, dreadfully frightened, made the best use of my legs, sympathy. He looked in my young eyes and pulled him in. It gave me a terrible turn. B. Reference to context. Read these lines from the story, then answer the questions. 1. He started, made a short run, and stopped and looked over his shoulder. There, sir, I timidly explained. Also, Georgiana, that's my mother. A. Why did he act as he did? Answer is the convict thought the boy's mother was around. B. What does the boy point out timidly to him? Answer is his mother's grave. C. Why does the boy say also Georgiana and not just Georgiana? Answer is it is written like that on her grave. He thought that was her name as he had never seen his mother. 2. Say, Lord, strike you, Dad, if you don't, said the man. I said so, and he took me down. A. To whom is the man talking, and why does he say this? Answer is the man is talking to Pip to scare him into doing what he had promised. B. Why does the responder take the oath? Answer A. Answer is Pip has been seated on a tombstone by the convict and he wants to get off from there. So he says this. See, what does take me down refer to? Answer is he means that he be removed from the tombstone. See words and meaning. Use the following in sentences of your own. A. Freckled. Sentences. The girl is attractive even though she has a freckled face. B. Ravenously. Sentence is the boy ate ravenously the food offered to him, which showed how hungry he was. C. More explicit. Sentence is the directions to reach the station should be more explicit so that one doesn't have to ask. D. Religiously entertained. Sentence is the woman religiously entertained the belief that if she kept to herself, she would stay out of trouble. E. Shuddering. Sentence is the boy didn't like to study and so shuddered at the thought of going back to school after the holidays. F. Clasping. Sentence is clasping her mother's hand tightly, the girl made her way through the traffic to the other side of the road. 2. What is the difference between the words in each pair? The first word in each case has been used in the story and may have a particular meaning according to its context. A. Marsh. Marsh, a low lying area which remains waterlogged mostly. Swamp. Swamp, marsh, too much of something. B. Infant. Infant, a very young child, around 5 to 7 years. Adolescent, a teenager. C. Beyond. Beyond, outside the range or limits of, above, at a higher level than. D. Derive. Derive, to obtain something from a source. Conclude, come to an end. Arrive at an opinion by reasoning. E. Entertain. Entertain, provide with amusement or enjoyment. Amuse, make someone laugh or smile. F. Parish. Parish, a district with its own church and clergy. Community, a group of people living together in one place. D. Language. The convict makes a number of mistakes in his speech. He also uses colloquial expressions and does not speak as well as Pip. Put his statements into correct modern English and explain what is wrong in each case. 1. Tell us your name, said the man. Tell me your name. B. Point out the place. Point out the place. 3. Drown me if I couldn't eat him, said the man. I could very easily eat them. 4. And is that your father a longer your mother? A longer, alongside, next to. 5. And you know what victuals is? Victuals, victuals, food items. You fail, or you go from my words in any particular, no matter how small it is, and your heart and your liver shall be tore out, roasted, and ate. If you don't keep your promise, I shall kill you and eat you up. 7. You remember what you have undertook, and you remember that young man, and you get home. You remember the promise you have made, and also the young man who is hiding here, and you can go home. 8. I wish I was a frog or a eel. I wish I were a frog or an eel. 9. Once more, said the man, staring at me. Give it mouth. Speak loudly. 10. Much of that, said he, glancing about him over the cold, wet flat. It's a long, dark, and lonely night. E. Discuss and write. 1. Discuss the effect the meeting with the convict has on Pip. If you were in his shoes, would you return to the scene? Give reasons for your answer after considering all the implications about his character, his feelings for the convict, his fear, and whether or not he wants to keep his words or word. Answer is Pip was already frightened when he met the convict, who scared him ever more. The convict threatened him by saying that he would kill him and eat him up if he didn't bring a file and some food the next day, or if he told anybody about him. I would be too scared to refuse and would just want to escape from there. 2. The convict is described as a fearful man, all in chorus grey, with a great iron on his leg. Why is the man in grey, and why does he have an iron on his leg? Is it ever right to put a man in shackles and to make him wear a particular uniform? Discuss this. Answer is the man is in grey because he is a convict who has just escaped from a prison and so has still got a great iron on his leg due to injury he was cut by a flint. Thanks for listening. For new videos, don't forget to subscribe my channel. And if you like my videos, please share and like.